Welcome back. This is Kevin Johnson of Leverage Consulting, and you're listening to the Resilient Entrepreneur Podcast, number 15. And I know that in some of the podcasts you've listened to in the past, I may have a little attitude, I may get a little wound up, but this one's not going to be like that. This one's going to have a little bit more seriousness about it. And it's because today I want to talk about somebody that we as a community lost. Before I get into that, I guess I want to lead into a little bit of the why behind this. I ended up going to school at Towson University, got my degree, and thought at the ripe old age of my mid-20s, whatever it was, that I had gotten the key and I've got my education, and anybody who's been there and done that now realizes that we had no idea what we'd learned. We had no idea how little we'd learned, and that really the learning curve was coming. And with that said, there have been some people that I have met in my lifetime that I would say I learned a lot from. And one of those people that I learned a lot from was Steve. And as I alluded to a minute ago, some of you listening to this or work locally to where I am, you know who Steve is, but most all of you probably have a Steve somewhere in your life or somewhere in your circles. And as I said, I thought I got my education in college, and what I've come to find out is that there are so many people in this world who have been there and done that. They have so many, as Steve would say, so many people who have so many gifts to share. It's a matter of whether you're really paying attention to even get them, receive them, take them, however you'd like to put it. And, I am not even going to sit here and create the impression that I knew Steve anywhere near as well as some other people. But I do feel like I'm a good judge of people, and I feel like I'm a people watcher. I'm a serial people watcher because I like to see what makes people tick. I like to see what makes people successful. And, I am sure that you, like me, have had things or people in your life that unfortunately you didn't take the time to appreciate them as much as you should in the moment. And, looking back now, and I knew some of these things, but when you really look back, and I wanted to make a list of some of the things, and I know this is not the list, but it is a list of things that made Steve successful. And, to list a few of them, one of them was the fact that Steve was absolutely humble. He did not have to be above anyone else. I do believe, and I'm a huge fan of servant leadership, Steve was the type that he would pour into other people to help make them successful. And I think that element of humility goes a long, long way. And I think that also plays into one of his other traits was the fact that he was a very selfless man. He had no problem taking time out of his schedule, his day, to help others. Now, mind you, he was in business. He was in business and he had to do business with other people, but yet he had no problem crossing lines and boundaries to go help other people, to help them be successful, because in the end, it would help him be successful. And I believe that most all of us have those opportunities in life to go help other people be successful. And in the end, yes, it will most likely boomerang around, but Steve did not have this expectation that I gave you something, now it's time for you to give me something back. He just knew it was in some way you put things into the universe and it's going to come back. And one of the other things, and this was literally my first experience with Steve, was he wanted to know about me. He wanted to know what I did. He wanted to just really get a deeper understanding. And before he and I were done with lunch, I believe he connected me with two people that may or will eventually end up being good business connections. And he ended up doing it more and more over time. And it was this is how Steve did business. I mean, and when you think about what he did for me was absolutely amazing. It was completely unexpected. And the funny thing is, it didn't cost him a dime to connect people, just to do things. And in the end, I think about the appreciation I had for him. And anytime I thought about somebody who was a lender, who do you think I thought of? Steve. He's a great guy. And you think about all the things he had done for me. He didn't have to do any of it, but he did. And again, it didn't cost him a dime. It took him 30 seconds to write an email. And here I am thinking about Steve. And, and that kind of brings me to one of the other pieces of this is, in addition to being a giver, he was a ninja at being a leader. And there were so many times I watched and observed, whether it was with me or with other people, and he would work to achieve things. I don't know that other people may know, but I never heard him raise his voice. I never saw him get irritated with anything. I never saw him react in any other way than some type of positive outlook. You present him with a problem, and he might smile about it and say, well, let's talk about how we can fix that. Steve was just a perpetually positive person, and you present him with a problem, and he's going to talk about how we can fix that. And as I'm talking to you about some of this, these are all things that, as I'm in my mode of people watching, these are all things when you wonder why people are successful, why they're able to get as far as they are, why they don't have as many problems. Well, think about some of the things that I've listed off. He's humble. He's a connector. He's a giver. He's perpetually positive. And as I said, he's a ninja leader in the sense that he could just get things done with people with some of these attributes. He could get things done without getting excited, yelling, demanding, or anything else. It just happened because he's a good guy. And I really do believe that you likely have people like that in your life. And it may not be exactly like Steve, but you have other people that you can learn from. And I can tell you from my own experiences since graduating from Towson University that I've gotten a far greater education just by listening, watching, observing people, and it could be people who are 50 years my senior. It could be people who are 35 years my junior. We can learn from anyone. And Steve was one. He had a few years on me, but he's one that in my circles I learned a ton from, even though I didn't have that much interaction with him. And as I said, I'm sure you have Steve's somewhere in your circles, somewhere in your life. And the only thing I can tell you is you need to keep your eyes open. You need to keep your eyes open and look for the Steves that are in your life who can help you get the rest of that education. And when you find that Steve, start taking notes. And more importantly, once you've taken the notes, start putting some of those things to use. Start putting them to action. And ultimately, when you have found your Steve, try to be like Steve.